President Biden sent Congress his latest request for even more spending money. The White House is seeking an additional $40 billion from Congress when they return in September. So what's the money for? Well, it includes, among other things, another $24 billion for Ukraine against just $4 billion for the crisis on our southern border and the fentanyl epidemic. And so you've got a lot of conservatives in Congress who are continue having great skepticism regarding the lack of accounting of money that's going to Ukraine. Well, what can we expect from September's appropriations battle? And trust me, it is going to be a battle. Joining me now to discuss this and more is Congressman Bob Good. He serves on the Budget Committee and the House Education and Labor Committee. He represents the 5th Congressional District of this great state of Virginia. Congressman Good, always great to see you. Welcome back, my friend.
Good afternoon, Congressman Heiss. Great to be with you, my friend.
Well, thank you so much. All right, let's jump into this. The president wants another $40 billion. Just jump change, $40 billion. Break down what it's going to be for and your thoughts about it.
Well, he wants to send another $24 billion, as you noted, to Ukraine. It's interesting. The one spending bill that we've gotten out of the House, the NDAA, the defense bill, I should say, and we tried to have an amendment to that we would have at least require the president to have a strategy with respect to Ukraine money, that he would have to have a plan and he have to disclose that plan and strategy. And sadly, we couldn't get that to pass out of the House. You know, let's just give the president more money, but he doesn't have to have a strategy or a plan on how he's going to use that or how Ukraine's going to use that for that matter. We're just going to give them more money and with no accountability. And now, as you noted, he wants to $24 billion more on top of the well over $100 billion that's already been sent. We're borrowing, Jody, as you know, all of that money from China. Setting aside your views on policies that relates to Ukraine, setting aside if you think that's in our national security interest, if you think that's America's battle, if you think that we've got a strategy, if you think we have an end game, if you think it's essential for us to be involved, let's just set that aside for a moment. We don't have the money. We're borrowing the money for every dollar that we're sending to Ukraine. We're borrowing it from our kids and our grandkids. We're borrowing it from China. But as you noted, only $4 billion is for our own border. And that's not even to secure the border. That is only to facilitate more illegals to invade our country as fast as they can, as quickly as they can. And of course, they're going to try to stick in their disaster relief for what's happening in Hawaii. And while our hearts go out to those in Hawaii, our prayers are with, the 100 that we know of, lives that have been lost, more to come, it seems almost for sure. But we ought to take that money and repurpose it from someplace else in our bloated budget, our reckless spending budget, and that's how we ought to take care of that disaster need. We're taking away some of the funding in our government that we shouldn't be doing.
Well, I know you were one of a number who really stood in the way with the debt ceiling battle. How, is this part of that? I mean, the disturbing part of that whole debt ceiling was that it had no ceiling. I mean, it's just just infinity as much as they want to spend. Is this part of that? How does this square up with the existing so-called debt ceiling?
Well, unfortunately, I have to go back to January again, back to the speaker battle. What the speaker battle was about is 20 Republicans saying, we're not going to do what we've always done. We're not going to betray the American people's trust who gave us the majority. We actually are determined to do what we ran on, and that's to stop the reckless spending, to bring some measure of fiscal responsibility. And we passed a good bill out of the House, the Limit, Save, Grow bill, that did cut spending, that did have some significant reforms in place. I don't have the time that we have in this visit right now to go through all the details on it, but it was a good bill with significant reforms, significant cuts that took a step towards fiscal responsibility. All of that was discarded in the debt ceiling deal. And to your point, Jody, the debt ceiling deal that was arranged between Schumer, Biden, and McCarthy is an unlimited debt ceiling through January 25. As much as Congress can come together and spend, and we're spending deficit spending about $150 billion a month right now, and that's without any extra so-called emergency special spending. That's just the regular spending. The interest increase is causing spending to go up more. We got to pay more to service our debt now because of Biden's policies of raising interest rates to exacerbate, not to combat, but to exacerbate the inflation that he's causing. Our fiscal situation is one of the many existential crises that's been created by this administration, and Republicans need to stand strong and united, do something we haven't done, and fighting that in the appropriations process next month when we get back to D.C.
Absolutely. And I think most people are understanding of the unprovoked invasion in Ukraine and don't mind helping to some extent. But what we're talking about here is over $100 billion with no accountability to the money. Is the big problem the lack of accountability, or is somehow this money being used to advance more woke agenda from this administration, like abortion or whatever else?
Well, I think there's a number of issues. Number one, to start where you ended there, you've got an administration that thinks climate's the greatest threat to the country. At least that's what they've told the military. They think the military is a social experiment to see how many transgender individuals they can have, how many abortions they can fund, again, how much they can climatize the military by moving to electric vehicles and things like that. So we've got an administration that doesn't understand the purpose of the military and has, tomorrow will be the 2-year anniversary of the disastrous, tragic exit from Afghanistan, where we left our partners behind. We had 13 service members lose their lives, and we embarrassed the world, the United States, on the world stage. So you don't have that confidence in what this administration, this Department of Defense, this military knows what they're doing. We're depleting our own resources and affecting our own readiness of what we're sending over to Ukraine. We're told we can't win a war with China right now, and we're sending, again, all these resources and weaponry and systems over to Ukraine to help them. Then beyond that, how is this in America's national security interest? You can be against Russia and against Putin, against what they've done. You can condemn it and stand against it, but not think that it's in our direct national security interest to wage this battle. They're not part of NATO. Europe is not invested in the fight. Why is the United States being the ones who are primarily funding it? And then what's the end game? What's the exit strategy? What does victory look like? How do we resolve this long term? Ukraine, as you know, is a corrupt country. It's not a democracy. Again, it's not a member of NATO. So this, I would suggest, is just not the United States fight. And we've done more than anyone else has done already, and we've borrowed the money to do just that.
Well said. Well, listen, if I can, we've just got a couple of minutes left. If I can switch topics for you, the investigation into the Biden family obviously continues. But frankly, with continued exposure to some of President Biden's previous lies, Democrats like Maryland Congressman Jamie Raskin, all they want to do is talk about Donald Trump. I'd like to play this clip and get your reaction. Hit clip 3, please.
We saw Joe Biden at one point say that Hunter Biden had no dealings, got no money from China. We now see from Hunter's own words that that's not true. Does any of this raise concerns for you? You know, the money from Ukraine, the money from China, the money from Russia. Does any of this, look, whether or not it's criminal, whether or not it warrants special counsel status, are you concerned about this stuff?
Here's what I'm concerned about. During the Trump administration, we saw the development of a completely new public philosophy.
Wow. Trump.
Your reactions. Couldn't have said it better, Jody. You know, the narrative is changing. Of course, first, the president didn't know anything about his son's business dealing. He was the only father in the country that didn't talk to his son about his job or about his work, about what he did. We know that's been demonstrably proven false. He's met with Hunter's business partners. He's traveled with Hunter's business partners. They've had audiences with him by phone and in person many times. We know the Biden family has gotten tens of millions of dollars. And so now the narrative has changed, not from that he didn't know or he never spoke about it to now, well, he wasn't officially in business with his son. And what was that business? What did the family do in exchange for those tens of millions of dollars? Why would someone give a foreign entity give Hunter Biden, a known crackhead, tens of millions of dollars with no experience in the industry for which that company or that foreign corporation is doing business in? We know that the influence peddling, the corruption, the Biden crime family is on full display, even bribery, as has been alleged by credible witnesses. Jamie Comer is doing a great job trying to uncover this. I'm glad to see you're just starting to get some questions from the major media outlets who have been loath to cover this. They're trying to make it about Hunter, but of course, that's not what it's about. It's about Joe Biden.
Congressman Bob Good, I always say it's great to have Bob Good on the program with us. Thank you so much for joining us on Washington Watch. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you, Jerry. Great to be with you once again.